difference for the working parents. One of the pointers for us is that in Ghana, it is said that exclusive breastfeeding is actually higher, about 54% in the rural areas compared to urban areas. So we think this year's theme is very apt, and we are really poised to learn so much and continue the advocacy on this course. So I want everyone to relax. And on this note, I welcome all of us, be it the pediatricians, nurses, all health professionals here, and mothers and fathers who have been able to join. You are all welcome, and we are going to share a lot, learn a lot, and be the advocates wherever we are. Thank you so much, and you're all welcome. Harry.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jasai. As I said, she's my boss who hates to be called boss. Such a mighty person bottled up in such a wonderfully diminutive figure. God bless you. Now, next up, we introduce the chairperson for today's meeting. And the chairperson has a unique name. The name will be revealed very soon. But here is a little we need to know about the chairperson. She recently retired from the Ghana Health Service after 33 years of active service with the Ghana Health Service, starting from Kolebu Teaching Hospital in 1989. Then quite a number of us were not born or we were just toddlers. She has served in various capacities at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital, St. Martin's Hospital in the Amansie West District of Ashanti Region, and the Princess Marie Louis Children's Hospital in Accra. In 1999, she joined the then RCH unit at the national level at the National Child Health as the National Child Health Coordinator. There she has remained, and now she's currently at the Department of Family Health Division, from where she has retired as a Deputy Director responsible for child health. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to welcome Dr. Sego Moses. Dr. Sego Moses, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I'm very happy to be part of this meeting today. World Breastfeeding Week started in 1992, and then in 93, Ghana started celebrating as a country. And since then, every year, the Ghana Health Service and other stakeholders have joined in marking this very important activity. Although it's a week for the world, in Ghana, I believe we've always gone beyond the week to dedicate the whole month of August to advocacy and behavior change communication towards optimal breastfeeding. Pediatric Society has been in the lead for a long time now.
My dear,
and so I believe that the activities of the society have contributed in maintaining the momentum, although not at the peak as we would want to. Without the society's activities, maybe we wouldn't have been where we are today. This year's theme is very, very important: enabling breastfeeding, making a difference for working parents. And it is important because when we look at breastfeeding and optimal breastfeeding, Now, the message, I believe, has gone down very well concerning how important it is and how it contributes to promoting child health and reducing child mortality. However, there are difficulties which make it difficult for the parents, or for that matter, the mother, to proceed the way they would want to. Most mothers would start very enthusiastically, and then once their maternity leave is over, it can't, it becomes difficult for them to continue. And so when you look at the trends, by 3 months, 4 months, exclusive breastfeeding rates start dwindling and getting less and less until they stop. Turning the highlight on work and breastfeeding this year is really the way to go. And I believe that this activity will help to inform mothers, but more strongly to also advocate to employers and all others who can help us push this agenda. I'm happy to be in the chair because I know my work will not be difficult. I have the MCs and I have all of us to make this afternoon a worthwhile event. And so with that, I'll pause here and come back at the end with my remarks. Thank you very much, Dr. Harry Akwa, MC. Kindly take over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sego Moses. I'm honored that you mentioned my name, just that. I'm honored by just that, the fact that you mentioned my name. Thank you. So next up, we head straight for the meat of the meeting. But our dear president of the Pediatric Society of Ghana has a few words to give the House. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Madam Chairperson, fellow executives, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a lot of joy to be able to speak to you again today. I'd like to appreciate all the hard work that the Greater Accra branch has done to bring us today. This will be the third time that we'll be having the virtual breastfeeding clinic, and over the past years, the feedback has been great and we have had very good results. So we are happy to be here again to launch the breastfeeding week for this year and also see a virtual clinic take place again. A lot has been said in terms of statistics, but we all know that breastfeeding is at the heart of human survival, and we all need to do our bit to protect it and help many more babies to benefit from breastfeeding. As a society, we put a few messages on the page some days ago about looking at the structure for the society, and very soon we'll be inviting you all to join some committees and also some subspecialty groups, which we hope will help us to get the best out of all members and to create opportunities for everyone while we build capacity to improve childcare in Ghana. We are also very privileged to announce that the International Pediatric Association had contacted us and or have selected us also to host the National Adolescent Forum. This we're hoping to have some time in September. Further details will be shared with you, but there's a lot more excitement coming up in the society. We appreciate all the work that everybody is doing in their various corners. We see you, we hear you, and we are very excited about what the future holds for all of us. So on behalf of all my executives and everyone, I'd like to say thank you again. Let's enjoy the meeting and let's make more impact together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hilda Boy. So as said earlier, next up we have the meat of the meeting. And to start, we have a wonderful person in our midst. She's someone I admire so much from a distance anyways. I haven't had much of an interaction with her, but she's such a wonderful person. She goes by the name Dr. Sally Menu. And Dr. Sally Menu is currently at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. She works in the neonatal intensive care unit. She has an MPhil degree and loves to teach medical students, junior doctors, and residents. Well, I'm next in line to be taught by you, Dr. Menu. Her personal statement is to be the very best she can be. So I'm quoting her, to be the very best I can be. As stated already, I guess someone's guess will be Dr. Menu should be a neonatologist, and she is a neonatologist. Let's welcome Dr. Sally Menu. If Dr. Menu could be made the host, so she presents she gives her presentation remotely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Harry. Just so that I can share my slides. Okay, thank you very much again, Harry, for the introduction. My name is Sally Menu, and I'm a member of the Pediatric Society of Ghana. So, as was said, a theme that has been chosen by the World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action for this year's celebration is enabling breastfeeding and making a difference for working parents. Just a bit of background to situate things properly. World Breastfeeding Week has been considered as one of the largest joint campaigns undertaken by international organizations, which is usually mainly championed by WHO and UNICEF. It's organized by the World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action, which essentially is a global network of individuals and organizations that are concerned or that promotes, protects, and supports breastfeeding all over the world. Like Dr. Sego Moses said, we've been celebrating the World Breastfeeding Week since 1992. However, it was in 2016 that the mission of the campaign began getting aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. So during this week, once we celebrate breastfeeding, we try to advocate, not only are we doing that, but we're actually helping our individual countries to achieve the United Nations SDGs. So just a little bit of interest, breastfeeding itself has actually evolved over the years from 2000 BC when mothers only knew to breastfeed their babies once they delivered, through to the 13th and the 16th century where aristocratic women thought that breastfeeding was not very royal in nature, and so would ironically higher ward nurses were often from the poorer divide, economic divide, to actually be the ones to nurse their babies for them. And then through to the middle 18th century where the rubber nipple was actually created or invented, and that made it easier to actually give breastfeeding or breast milk substitutes, which was mainly cow's milk then, to babies. And then in 1865, we had the first infant formula being developed. And since then, there's been a proliferation of brands of infant formula on the market. So much so that about middle 1950s, supposedly improved infant formula appeared on the market, providing an alternative to wet nursing and then even to breastfeeding itself. So during this era, breastfeeding was considered old-fashioned and formula was somehow, for some reason, believed to be superior to breast milk. So this continued until about the 1970s, when world leaders actually boycotted the largest producer of formula, because then there had been an increase in the infant mortality rate, which was attributed in part to feeding babies with formula that had been prepared with contaminated water. Since then, the global campaign to encourage breastfeeding has taken on full force, with some even countries actually enacting laws that require employers to provide private non-bathroom lactation spaces for breastfeeding employees. And our hope is that 2030 and beyond, we'll be able to enact more countries, more states, more federal laws will be enacted to actually protect every breastfeeding parent's right to workplace lactation, accommodations, paid family leave, and even universal childcare in general. So I was asked to speak on the topic mother work and breastfeeding. So I tried to pick the thoughts of a few of my colleagues on what readily came to mind with this topic. And I think the common theme that I got was challenging. In fact, most of them used this word, challenging. It was like one word that sums it all up. So workplace challenges have been found to be one of actually the most common reason for women not to breastfeed or to stop breastfeeding earlier than recommended. And it's been found that the duration of exclusive breastfeeding is somehow tied to the duration of maternity leave and then how breastfeeding friendly the workplace is. It's interesting to note that out of the 195 countries worldwide, only about 42 countries actually mandate workplace breastfeeding facilities. And so what most other places would do would be to give extra breaks for breastfeeding, which is typically about 30 minutes on 2 occasions, so in about an hour in all. And then like what we do on this side, where we actually allow nursing mothers to close a bit earlier, giving them a reduction in the work hours so that they can breastfeed. I mean, these are certainly helpful, but one would ask, is this enough? As a significant portion of mothers are still unable to practice the recommended exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. So what seems to be the challenge? The true challenge actually appears to be sustaining breastfeeding and not its initiation, as the Ghana Demographic and Health Survey that was done in 2014, together with some of the studies that I've listed down, actually found out that about 98% of women that were surveyed then reported having ever breastfed their children. What seemed to be lacking then was actually the proper infant and young child feeding practices that included exclusive breastfeeding that were not being followed to recommendation. Actually, in Ghana, there's been a general decline in Ghana's exclusive breastfeeding rate from about 63 in 2008 to about 52 in 2014, and then the current figure is at about 43.7. So you would agree with me that with this rather steep decline, I mean, knowing the benefits of breastfeeding to neonate, I mean, the essential neonatal care, neonatal survival, etc., and even child survival, you would agree with me that the time to actually act is now. Now, when it comes to sustaining breastfeeding, we all know that exclusive breastfeeding practice for 6 months is and would remain a critical global public health goal. However, over the world, it's actually been quite challenging. So, for instance, the global breastfeeding rate as at 2020 was about 44, and then about 31% in Central and Western Africa. Ghana's 43.7 is higher than the regional average, but you would agree with me that there's still a lot that we can do in terms of that. So a study was done by Ejekum et al. In 2019 and published just last year on the enablers and inhibitors of exclusive breastfeeding. They took perspectives from mothers and health workers in Accra, Ghana, and they found out that the decision to practice exclusive breastfeeding was actually based on the kind of work that the mother did, whether the mom was in the formal sector or the informal sector. They actually found out that those in the formal sector tended to breastfeed for do exclusive breastfeeding for a shorter duration compared to those in the informal sector. And the kind of advertisement on exclusive breastfeeding that is being shown on our television, on our media spaces, and then the kind of education that we as health workers actually give to these mothers. They also found out that the decision to discontinue exclusive breastfeeding tended to come from the insufficient flow of breast milk, whether this was actually true or perceived, and especially when it's combined with pressure from family and friends to actually stop breastfeeding. I know that we are all health workers too familiar with insufficient flow of milk being one of the reasons why people would decide to stop exclusive breastfeeding or add breast milk substitute. They also found out that some of the factors that tended to improve exclusive breastfeeding were eating healthy food and breastfeeding on demand, which naturally would promote more milk production. And so the mom gets reassured and the baby gets full. The kind of counseling that we give to them during at our child welfare clinics, and then restricting advertisements on infant formula, and then the kind of, or the duration of maternity leave for these breastfeeding mothers. So I just put up the slide also from the same article, just to give us an overview of some of the enablers and some of the inhibitors they found to breastfeeding, so that even as we go about our advocacy, we know that these are some of the perception of these parents, and then we can actually speak to them when we do about doing our advocacy. So as we celebrate World Breastfeeding Week 2023, some of our objectives should include educating these working parents on their own, based on their own perspective on breastfeeding. So you actually have to know what they think, and then you can give them guided advice. We have to try as much as possible to anchor optimal paid leave and workplace support as important tools to enable breastfeeding. I think there have been talks in the past about trying to extend our paid maternity leave to 6 months. Maybe it's about time to actually revisit that. We also want to try as much as possible to engage with individuals and organizations. We might also try as much as possible to engage with individuals and organizations to enhance collaboration and support for breastfeeding at work. And our target audience should be government officials, policymakers, institutions, communities, and parents. And even as we interact with them, we want to engage them to play their critical roles in empowering families and sustaining breastfeeding-friendly environments in this post-pandemic work life. And then even as we go about, we must remember that we should tell them about the cost of not breastfeeding, which include increased vulnerability to diseases such as respiratory and diarrheal diseases, which in fact will also add on to increased cost of healthcare, increased mortality, and then cognitive losses that can impact a child's ability to learn to achieve their full potential, which will then come back and affect the kind of workforce that the nation has, and then eventually become like a vicious cycle. And then hopefully throw in the benefit to mom when it comes to breastfeeding, because it's been found to result in a reduction in the mom's risk of developing invasive breast and invasive ovarian cancers as well for every year that the mother breastfeeds. And Walters et al. Actually did a study that said that if we could increase breastfeeding rates in Ghana, it could actually potentially prevent about 300 maternal deaths. So that's maybe the reason that would give somebody the push to actually breastfeed their babies. So what is the way forward? The first is that one of the things that we can do is for policymakers to invest in national policies and programs that support breastfeeding, so that we can reap the benefits that include improving the health of baby, improving the health of mom, and then the country can also reap the economic benefits thereof. We must try as much as possible to scale up our breastfeeding practices at the national level, and then again, look at expanding the paid maternity leave for parents, and then looking at how making our workplaces more breastfeeding friendly, both in the formal and informal sectors, even if it means allocating public funding for this. The other thing that we can do would be including nutritional counseling, and then the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding in hospital standards, and then for accreditation, so that this will push more hospitals to practice what we preach. We also have to try as much as possible to review where we stand as a country on the global breastfeeding scorecard, which is simply a national performance indicator on how a country is performing in terms of priority areas when it comes to breastfeeding. One of these areas would include actually the kind of how we are sticking well as a country to the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. So are we enacting and enforcing the laws that try to guide or restrict the kind of aggressive marketing we often see from these people, and then strengthen the consequence of violators as well, and then continue to do what we do best, trying to bring about social and behavior change communication, using all the multiple communication channels that will be tailored towards local context, so that we can get more people on board. No, breastfeeding, we know that women have been breastfeeding from time immemorial, since the dawn of time. It's therefore quite interesting that in the 21st century, we still have breastfeeding employees still lacking the support they need, if only just to even pound breast milk at work. And then there's this social stigma around breastfeeding in public that is also surprising, especially in an era where minority groups are being given all the support they need. It's really surprising that a mother cannot feel comfortable to breastfeed their child in public. These are some of the reasons why we get low exclusive breastfeeding rates, even amongst all nations, not just in Ghana. So it's really interesting, because you wonder why a natural human function that actually literally sustains life has become so controversial. But just in conclusion, from what I've said, I think we can all see that the history of breastfeeding has actually been shaped by shifting cultural norms and reflects the quest for substitutes, now not just for breast milk, but actually for the breast as well, for aesthetic purposes. However, what is clear is that investing in policies and programs that actually support mothers to breastfeed saves lives and provides a high return on investment. So during this week and during this month, as we continue to advocate for our babies for breastfeeding, we must remember that this should be our message to power. This should be our message to authority. So happy Breastfeeding Week to all of us, and let's let the advocacy continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Menu. That was quite insightful. This should be our message to power. Yes, and it is our message to power. Thank you once again. My attention has been drawn to the fact that there is a Google form out there. It will be uploaded it will be posted on the Pediatric Society of Ghana Greater Accra regional page. For all doctors, for all members who are interested in CPD points, you have to fill this form, and then you pay an amount of 50 cedis to the Momo number 0558694042. It will be shared on the page, so we will all see, but I go through it again, 0558694042. And the name on it is PSGGAR Momo. Thank you very much. Next up, we have my own boss, Dr. Frank Osu-Setre, who will be giving a presentation on the role of fathers in breastfeeding. I mean, a number of us haven't yet witnessed our wives breastfeeding. It's something I'm looking forward to. But Dr. Osu-Setre is a legend when it comes to that. So our dear old Dr. Osu-Setre is a consultant pediatrician at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. He is the head of the Rebecca Akufo-Addo Pediatric Intensive Care Unit at Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. He's a part-time lecturer at the Department of Child Health, UGMC. He's also a secretary of the Ghana chapter of West African College of Physicians. He has a special interest in pediatric cardiology, particularly echocardiography, as well as pediatric intensive care and pediatric infectious disease. His hobbies are tennis, writing, Scrabble, and football. Dr. Osu-Setre, you have the floor. Please let's, if Dr. Osu-Setre could be made host, so he shares his slides. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harry, for all those nice words, which I believe I don't deserve. What you will not be forgiven for not mentioning the fact that I support Liverpool. And as you know, we know that nobody is perfect, but being a fan of Liverpool is next to perfection. So I'm waiting to be able to share my screen.
Okay, so sorry.
Stop other screen sharing. Do you want? Yes, continue. Okay. So can you see my screen? Please confirm if you can.
Yes, please. Your screen can be seen.
All right, very good. So I was given 15 minutes to make justice to the topic, the role of fathers in breastfeeding. And when Dr. Ajasai called me to give this talk, I said, Claudia, why? What have I done? He said, oh, I came to your house and I saw what you were doing. So I think you qualify to give this speech. I'm not sure what she saw. But yesterday, I put a flyer on my status. And I did that first to advertise, but secondly, and more importantly, to also look for comments that will come from my friends. And they did not disappoint. So they came. One of them said, breastfeeding power, I want to be a lecturer on it. Then another one came, do you have breast with milk? Then another one, I would like to join. Father, wink, wink, whatever that means. And then bold one for you. We'll listen to my rule. And then the last one, Massa, don't go and create matter for us. And I don't think you have any difficulty guessing who these people are. They are all fathers or males. And in a subtle way, what this tells me is that not that many of us see breastfeeding as part of the roles that we occupy as fathers, as husbands. So I dug into literature, and then I realized that there are a lot of information on fathers and their role in breastfeeding. So I came across the role of fathers in promoting exclusive breastfeeding, which is a very good paper. Fathers and breastfeeding, attitude, involvement, and support. Perinatal breastfeeding interventions, including fathers and partners. Then I saw this one penned by a Ghanaian, entitled Association Between Paternal Characteristics and Exclusive Breastfeeding in Ghana, and so many other information I came across. So we all know what breastfeeding is, the fact that it is a cornerstone for infant nutrition. I do not want to repeat what Sally has said, but the benefits of breastfeeding goes beyond the mothers and the child, but society as a whole. In fact, breast milk is said to be able to program what somebody is going to be in the future. And of course, it programs them for the good aspects of their personality. So if because of breastfeeding, a serial killer is not, I mean, it's been programmed not to kill, then that is a benefit to society. So the benefit of breast milk goes beyond just what we have researched. And then research is still ongoing. Who knows what may come out in a couple of months or years time. The recommendation has been that we do exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. And studies have shown that we need support from the families for successful exclusive breastfeeding. And out of this support, the father plays a very vital role. The knowledge, the attitude of the father are very key in helping with the choice of breastfeeding. And we know that if the father is always making a big fuss about the breast, how the breast looks like and how it's going to sag after breastfeeding and the rest, the chances are that the mother is not going to choose breastfeeding or exclusive breastfeeding purely because of the comments or the seemingly lack of support from fathers. So why do we have to bring in fathers? We know that studies have shown that fathers' knowledge and education on breastfeeding interventions have resulted in massive improvements in outcomes of breastfeeding. And I came across this paper, which I want to quote the findings. It says, a father's positive attitude, involvement, and support greatly influenced breastfeeding decision and commitment among mothers and was associated with increased breastfeeding rates and duration. Now look at the flip side. the exclusion of fathers from breastfeeding support and preparation may result in decreased quality of life and self-efficacy among fathers. Now, what was the conclusion of this paper? It says that focusing on fathers as a major part of the breastfeeding family and engaging them in preparation and support process will certainly impact positively on breastfeeding rates. So the benefits of the father coming along cannot be overemphasized. Now, that said, this paper by Frank Che Arthur was interesting reading. He looked at certain paternal characteristics and its association with mothers doing exclusive breastfeeding. And he looked at so many factors, but I'm going to concentrate on those that were significantly associated with exclusive breastfeeding by the mothers. So the first one was the father's education. Interestingly, if the father had primary education, just primary education, then the mother is most likely going to have exclusive breastfeeding. Unfortunately, and to my everlasting shame, as they climbed up the academic ladder, there was no association. Shocking. The other was if the father wanted more children. If they wanted more children, then they encourage the mothers to have exclusive breastfeeding. By way of religion, the father was a Muslim. The mother was likely to have exclusive breastfeeding. And if this is the firstborn ever of the father, then he was going to encourage the mother to do exclusive breastfeeding. If the father encouraged the mother to visit antenatal clinics frequently, that was also positively associated. And if the age of the previous child was 2 and above. So these are certain characteristics that encourage the mothers to breastfeed when the father had them. So how can a father support? We all know the impact that a positive atmosphere in the family can have. And again, I looked at this paper on effectiveness of breastfeeding interventions delivered to fathers in low and middle income countries where we find ourselves. And then it was worth reading. I found that fathers can support by way of housework. So many things that mothers will do prior to delivery, and the fathers may have to take that role. And it helps if they do assume that role. Care of older children. So who goes to pick the child from school, the older child from school? We know it may be challenging considering where the father's office is. But can he make arrangements such that the breastfeeding mother can have some rest and concentrate on the baby? What about caring for partner's well-being in general? Mother has got a migraine. She's tired. She just needs to rest. Is it possible for us to hold the child as they take a nap? What about meal preparation? I think this is one aspect that my wife would never have a problem with me on because I like cooking. And so with a baby coming in, I assume the director of the kitchen. And if a lot of men can do that, that is going to be very useful as well. There are certain things, for example, you are in the care of the child and the child is hungry. There may be some cues that if father is able to pick, it will help, such as burping the baby, diaper change, and the rest. All these things will contribute to the mother's resolve to have exclusive breastfeeding. Studies have indicated that the fathers do not only want to be emotionally involved in the care of the newborn, but they want to be there practically to support as well, especially during breastfeeding. So what can we do? Is it possible for us to plan our annual leave together to coincide with the birth of the child? I have talked about when mother is so stressed that she wants to sleep. Is there a way we can take over and help? We know that when the mother is stressed, it does affect the production and the flow of the milk. So if we allow them to be relaxed, then the milk will flow naturally, and then it will be easier to do the exclusive breastfeeding. Is there any way we can help parents or our wives as they pump the milk. I know a lot of people have some reservations or some phobia with regards to breast milk and the smell and others. But is it possible for us to put that aside and give the little support that we can as we encourage them to pump more breast milk, probably keep in the fridge or freezer, so that we can use it on a rainy day? We can also support as fathers through putting baby to sleep. We can show our love, we can motivate, we can exhibit our affection, a little pat here and there, kiss here and there, and encouraging mothers so that they don't give up. It is stressful, it is challenging, but with a little bit more push, we should be able to help mothers, support them as they do exclusive breastfeeding. So all this support from the father, what are the effects? Again, I came across this article, and I want to read this one also. And it says, suboptimal breastfeeding rate is a long-standing clinical issue, and increasing breastfeeding duration exclusivity within the population is a public health priority. Targeting fathers stroke partners in breastfeeding intervention is warranted, as fathers' involvement is a risk factor which is amenable to intervention. Breastfeeding initiation, duration exclusivity, and paternal breastfeeding support were significantly increased in a number of interventions. I think I don't have to speak more, not to mention the fact that it enhances the bonding of the father and the infant as they help with the mother's quest to do exclusive breastfeeding instead of going out to join boys on a drinking spree or to watch football. We can watch football at home at the same time lending a hand to cater for the babies. We also know that the fathers also benefit. In fact, studies have shown that the quality of life of fathers is higher when they help the mothers to go through exclusive breastfeeding. We know it strengthens the parental role, and also it helps to synchronize the effort of both mothers and fathers, which are all channeled into the welfare of the baby. So now I want us to go through this again and see, after all that I have said, whether people will still send these messages after we have gone through the role that males can play in helping our wives to do exclusive breastfeeding. Now, I need to tell you this because when we say support, the support does not mean that we should take over. So I heard some babies sharing their experiences at the OPD. I heard one say, as for me, I share a bed with my dad. He's a fantastic guy. Then the other baby said, as for me, my father always puts me to sleep. I don't like his voice, but it has a way of putting me to sleep. Then the third one says, you guys are really blessed. As for me, I'm always fighting over my food with my dad, who is bald-headed. I hope that after this, we will leave the breast to the babies and not fight with them over that. Thank you very much. And if there are questions, I'll be more than happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Osuseche. As I said earlier, when it comes to issues bordering breastfeeding, he's an expert. I guess my reason for leaving out the Liverpool bit is the fact that I'm a Manchester United fan. So, Dr. Osuseche, I'm sorry. All right. So, thank you for being with us till this point. Next up, we have breastfeeding and the law. This presentation will be given by Dr. Mrs. Jikwa Planjuru. But before that, are there any questions? any questions to any. So I assume we don't have any questions yet. Kindly put your questions in the chat box as we go along. They will be addressed accordingly.
Harry, there's a question that I know you are trying to avoid. It is directed at you from Michael Pokwe Champon. He says, beautiful presentation. One question, please. Can Dr. Harry Akwa, as a father, support breastfeeding by staying away from the breast for a longer period postpartum? I suspect he knows what he's talking about.
I guess I'll give this answer to him directly, Michael. Michael, I'll give you the answer directly when I meet you. Thank you for your question. So up till now, my voice has been re-echoing in your ears. I think it's now time to hear a much more soothing voice. My sister, Salma Adomako, is here with me. She'll take over. Salma.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here as a co-MC with Harry. As we just heard, men are also supposed to support breastfeeding. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting if they do, very helpful for both mother and baby and for the entire family as a whole. I'm here to introduce one amazing woman, amazing doctor who has been championing the cause of breastfeeding for some time now. Let me simply introduce her with these words. Dr. Planjuru is a consultant pediatrician at the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital. She is a senior lecturer at the Department of Child Health, School of Medicine and Dentistry, KNUST. She's also a lawyer and an examiner of the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons. She was the head of mother and baby unit at the Directorate of Child Health, Komfanochi Teaching Hospital, for more than 20 years. Dr. Planjuru has more than 31 peer-reviewed publications on various topics, including newborn care, legal and ethical issues of medicine, and dysmorphology. Dr. Chijikwa Planjuru, if you are here, everybody, let's help welcome her as she gives us a bit on legal issues, the law and breastfeeding. Thank you.
Right. Yes, hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, great. Thank you very much. I don't have a great connection this afternoon. Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to speak on this topic. Madam Chairperson, Dr. Sego Moses, it's great to hear that we are still together championing breastfeeding after so many years. Yes, so this afternoon I've been asked to talk about the law and breastfeeding, as we all know, and has been said by all the previous speakers. We are in World Breastfeeding Week. And the theme this year, again, as the previous speakers have said, is about breastfeeding and work. One rendition I saw was, let's make breastfeeding and work work. And we always have, whenever the breastfeeding week rolls around, we get lots and lots of people are asked to send in breastfeeding quotes. And this year was no different. There were lots and lots of quotes. And but the one that I found, particularly which stood out for me was the one that said breastfeeding is not always easy, but it is always worth it. My video probably shows that I am in white. I am currently at the outdooring of my first grandchild, and having spent a number of weeks with them, I am reminded that exclusive breastfeeding is not always easy. It can be, obviously it can be, well, having a new baby is never easy. It can be quite tiring. You have sleepless nights. Often, sometimes in the early stages, challenges with getting lactation up and running, but I'm reminded that it's always worth it. WHO recommends 18 weeks of paid maternity leave, and also paid time off for breastfeeding or expressing breast milk when the maternity leave is over. And if we look around the world very, very quickly at what other countries have, we know that in Ghana currently we have 12 weeks of paid maternity leave. And this is a little diagram showing what other countries have. The United States has no paid maternity leave and goes round up to Greece that has about 26 weeks. There are other countries that have much longer leaves, but sometimes they are not fully paid. Yes.
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that was somebody speaking to me. Okay. So very quickly, as we look at what the law has to say about breastfeeding, there are two very important laws. I'm going to focus particularly on the second one. The first one is the LI on the marketing of breast milk substitutes, which currently was under the FDB Act, but is currently under the Public Health Act. And the second one is to look at what the labor law says on rights of women workers in pregnancy and after delivery. As I said, I particularly intend to focus largely on issues of maternity leave and maternity protection, but I would be amiss if I didn't spend at least one slide on what used to be called LI 1667, which is the Ghanaian law on the marketing of breast milk substitutes. So I think the first speaker, Sally, alluded to the WHO code. The law regulates the marketing activities of companies that manufacture and sell breast milk substitutes in keeping with the code. And this law forbids companies that manufacture, distribute, and sell breast milk substitutes from advertising products to the public. So there's a whole, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but there is a whole set of guidelines as to what the companies that manufacture these substitutes can and cannot do. They're not allowed to advertise directly to the public. They're not allowed to go around giving free samples to health facilities. So on the one hand, there are many things that these companies are forbidden to do by law. We know that there are many violations of this law. But on the other hand, as health workers, we are also discouraged from accepting gifts and sponsorship from these companies. And I thought that it was important to make this point before we go on to talk about maternity protection. And as I said, we could do a whole session on the law against advertising, except to say that it's not a law. This law is not against the use of formula. It is against the very aggressive and unethical marketing pressure that is brought about by formula companies. And as health workers, we need to be extremely cautious that we do not inadvertently become the channels through which this advertising is done. So having said that, I'll move quickly on to the laws of maternity protection in Ghana. So in Ghana, under the current law, women are entitled to a minimum of 12 weeks paid maternity leave. The old law used to say that it was 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after, but that is not the case currently. So you're entitled to 12 weeks maternity leave. And unlike in other jurisdictions, the woman does not need to apply for maternity leave. It is assumed that if you are pregnant, you are entitled to maternity leave. The law also says that employers should not assign, unless a pregnant woman consents, she should not assign or employ a pregnant woman worker to do any night work between the hours of 10 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning. As far as I can tell, our law does not define a pregnant woman, and therefore, once you are pregnant, you have the right to ask not to do night work. For nursing mothers, and again, I think Sally made reference to this, a nursing mother is entitled, this is what the law says, is entitled to interrupt her work for an hour during her working hours to nurse her baby. We note that nursing mothers do not have night exemptions, which is actually a pity, because we know that for many working mothers, night breastfeeding is extremely important. Many babies who are currently, dealing with a niece who has a 9-month-old baby who is still breastfeeding every 2 hours at night. So it's I think that if we ever think of pushing for things, it's probably one of the things that we need to ask for. The law defines a nursing mother as a woman with a child suckling at her breast for a period of not more than 1 year. So after your child is 1 year, from a legal point of view, you are not considered a nursing mother. So we have this cartoon of a baby looking at the breast, and he's saying, so mom's going back to work. Do you have to go to? And I remember that, a couple of days back when, as I said, I'm with my daughter with her first baby, and she had to go out, and that's exactly the way I felt. I felt, I wish you could leave your breast behind, because it can get quite challenging. So as I said, exclusive breastfeeding is not easy, and we need to be creative, and we need to find ways of getting around. Of course, expressing breast milk and all that is very important. Just quickly, 2 definitions of terms that are used in the law. The word confinement refers to the time of delivery and immediately afterwards, and pregnancy refers to the time of being pregnant. There are no time limits placed in Ghanaian law. I define these words because they are used in the law, and it's important to understand what they mean. Okay, so what does the labor law say? It says that a woman worker is entitled to a period of, in Section 57 of the Labor Act, is entitled to a period of maternity leave of at least 12 weeks, in addition to any period of annual leave she's entitled to after her period. Now, we note that it says at least 12 weeks. And so we say that maternity leave in Ghana is 12 weeks. But the law makes it quite clear that under certain special circumstances, a woman is entitled to get more maternity leave. And I think that it's important that we are familiar with what these things are, so that we can, if you're a woman and you are requesting maternity leave, you should know whether you are entitled to more than 12. And then it also says that you are entitled to take your annual leave. And so I've seen quite a number of women who were told that they were refused. And they were given their maternity leave, but they were told they cannot take their annual leave. But the law actually says that she's entitled to any period of annual leave. So if you still have 2 months of your annual leave left, or 1 month or whatever, you should be able to add it to your maternity leave. Okay. Section 57 says the period of maternity leave may be extended for at least 2 additional weeks where the confinement is abnormal, or where in the course of the same confinement 2 or more babies are born. So remember earlier on we said confinement is the time of delivery and immediately afterwards. So if you have an abnormal confinement, unfortunately the law doesn't go into detail to give us examples of confinement, but if we've given the example of twins, that if you have twins or triplets, you are entitled to, and it says at least 2 additional weeks. It doesn't say at most. And so if you are entitled, if you have, twins or triplets, you are entitled to ask for, and the obstetrician should give such mothers additional time, depending. If you had, for example, a set of preterm twins, that is an abnormal confinement. And that's, so the mother who has term twins may not need as much time as the mother who has preterm twins. And so, the law doesn't go into a lot of detail as to how much maternity leave we're entitled to, but these are some of the examples. And so the question, what is an abnormal confinement? Is it prematurity? Is it stillbirth, eclampsia, PPH? Another question that often arises is, will illness of the baby in a normal pregnancy, would that qualify as an abnormal confinement? So if you had, your baby had birth asphyxia, your baby had a malformation, should that qualify you for additional maternity leave? And if you look at the spirit of the law, it should, because the idea is if you are in a peculiar situation under which you need more time than just the 12 weeks, then certainly you should be entitled to more maternity leave. Is a cesarean section an abnormal confinement? I think that there are many facilities that automatically give all mothers who have a cesarean section an additional 2 weeks. What if you had an episiotomy during your confinement? Would that qualify? So, I mean, as I said, all these things are not clearly spelled out in the law. And I believe that it's one of the very helpful things that obstetricians and pediatricians might want to get together to do would be to draw out some rules that would guide everyone when we are giving maternity leave to women. So I gave the example of the cesarean section. And then the question is, if somebody has a simple elective cesarean section, especially where the reason is a social one. So there are women who say, I want my baby to be born on, I'm a queer and I want my baby to be born on a Wednesday. So I'm choosing to have a cesarean section, or I want my baby to be born on my husband's birthday. If you contrast this to the woman who gives birth to a 26-week preterm baby, I think that without a doubt, the mother who gives birth to a preterm baby requires more maternity leave than the mother who gives birth to a healthy term baby by cesarean section. And for anyone who has no idea what a 600-gram preemie looks like, this is a picture just to see how vulnerable and how tiny this baby is and how much care this baby needs. It's quite certain if this baby weighs 600 grams at birth, after 12 weeks, he's probably going to weigh 1,200 grams. There is no way that this mother can go back to work. So I am very comfortable giving mothers additional time. And when I used to head NBU, I was very happy to give mothers additional maternity leave, and no one ever pushed back and said, no, you cannot do that. And then a couple of other examples where an illness medically certified by a medical practitioner is due to the pregnancy. The woman worker is entitled to additional leave. So it means your maternity leave can be extended if you have an illness that is due to the pregnancy. So if, for example, you had, preeclampsia or something that was due to the pregnancy, your doctor can give you extra additional maternity leave, or where the illness is due to the confinement. And I defined confinement earlier on. I said confinement is the period of delivery and immediately afterwards. So if the mother is ill during the confinement, she had, she had very bad sepsis, or, she had uterine rupture. So the point is, the law does appear in the wording to make room for additional maternity leave. So even though we say in Ghana we are entitled to 12 weeks, there are provisions for us to ask for more. The challenge is sometimes that if you look at the maternity leave forms in many of our hospitals, there's no provision for the doctor to make any recommendation as to how long the maternity leave should be. So and then often women collect their maternity leave, before they deliver. And so if they have an abnormal confinement, it's difficult. You then go back and, ask for more leave. How does it work? So sometimes there are practical difficulties. And another way around it, which I believe, again, Sally alluded to, was the concept of baby-friendly workplaces. And I saw this very nice picture recently. Apparently, this was just last year. TUC inaugurated a workplace breastfeeding corner for its office employees to boost their productivity. Again, it's well known that if women, have something, if you have to go back after 12 weeks, is there a place where you can express breast milk? Is there a fridge where you can keep your breast milk? And so these are some of the ways in which we can help.
Babe.
So we've looked at some of the issues of the law. We looked at the LI 1667, which talks about marketing, and we encourage health workers, as I said, not to be inadvertent advertisers of formula through the way we accept sponsorship. So in conclusion, I'll say that if a nation's human resource is its most if it's a nation's human resource, in other words, the people in a nation are its most valuable resource, then investing in things like maternity leave is a valuable economic tool. We know that not all women get maternity leave, and there are, I was speaking to a young man recently who has a small business, we're talking about maternity leave. And I was asking him, if maternity leave in Ghana was to go to 18 weeks, would you employ women? And he told me, quite frankly, no, I would not employ any woman. But investing in maternity leave is important because we know that it improves breastfeeding outcomes and ultimately gives us, I showed you this picture here, are 2 children, one clearly malnourished. This child is going to find it very difficult to grow up to be a productive adult. This one will probably be a very productive adult. And each of them is going to contribute to either improving the economy or making it worse. So in Ghana, the current entitlement is at least 12 weeks, but the law does give provisions for more where it is needed. So as I said, there are many provisions which exist in the law for abnormal situations, and these need to be applied in the interest of the mother and child. Of course, they must be applied responsibly. People are always worried, and we know that there's always a temptation to say that, oh, if you doctors suddenly they'll start giving women 40 weeks because of the imaginary things. So of course, we need to be responsible in applying these abnormal situations, but we should take advantage of them, and where it is necessary, extend the mother's leave. I know that there are women who don't get maternity leave and are sometimes afraid to ask for it because they feel, and sometimes it does happen, that the employer can, work is hard to get, and sometimes employers can be very difficult and might even tell you that if you insist on maternity leave, then, when you go, your job will not be waiting. So I know mothers who, after a month, are back at work because the employer did not give her maternity leave. So every woman worker is entitled to paid maternity leave, but in practice, unfortunately, not all get it. So as we advocate, I think that it is one thing that Pediatric Society can advocate very strongly for, that every woman should be able to get maternity leave. Maternity leave is not a holiday. It's a period of extreme hard work, and mothers really need this period of time to be able to establish the care of the baby, to get breastfeeding going. Of course, it's important to understand also that if we do not support women to breastfeed their babies, you can have a situation where you can make your maternity leave 6 months. She'll still stay at home and give the baby formula because we've not been able to help her breastfeed. So on that note, I would like to say a very big thank you for the opportunity to share these thoughts with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Planjuru. I love this bit of the legal issues because I believe I have a case pending. I got a query letter after my first child because I stayed at home for 6 months. Instead of 3 months, I had no help and I had no support. So Dr. Ru, I'll see you probably to continue with that. I will never forget that experience.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. Okay.
Yeah, and that is the case for many women until the education goes out there. So I believe everybody on the call, whether parent or health worker, we can continue to talk about it, spread the news. As much information as we have, we can keep spreading it because some policies at workplaces are not permitting women to even complete their 3 months breastfeeding exclusively. And they keep calling them to come for work as if they've committed a crime to stay at home. Thank you very much once again. And this is the right time for us and an opportunity for any question to come on the floor for our able facilitators to respond and give us some answers. But before that, there's some in the chat box I'd like to read for us.
While our sister Selma is going through the chat box, our dear sister Dr. Nelly Adade has her hand raised. So Nelly, kindly unmute and go for it.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Planjuru. It was very insightful. Please, my question is, sometimes when women have an abnormal situation or confinement, example, child was admitted at NICU or for neonatal jaundice, etc. And I've heard a situation where the person tried to get extra 2 weeks, or for the time the person stayed in the hospital, and then the employer went like, you have your annual leave left. You've not exhausted your annual leave. So what's the point? Is it proper for the person to use the annual leave as part of the time they were in the hospital, or the person should get an additional? So should the person exhaust the annual leave before coming to apply for the extra time spent in the hospital, or it should be like an excuse form signed plus the maternity leave for the person? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Nelly. Dr. Planjou, I think that question was to you. So if you could help us with the answer. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. As I said, I think one of the challenges with the law is that there's so little flesh on it. And one of the things that I think is very important that should happen is that the obstetricians, pediatricians must get together and put some flesh. What exactly are the things that would fall under an abnormal confinement? So I gave some examples because I think most people accept that a cesarean section is an abnormal confinement. And I gave the example, if you have an episiotomy, is that considered an abnormal confinement? But I think there would be a distinction between a normal confinement where you have a normal baby who then goes on to fall sick. That probably, would be, you'd be considered as a sick child. And unfortunately, there are no laws in Ghana that, entitle you to get leave for a sick child. So I think most people would basically have to approach employers. There's compassionate leave and things like that. But certainly if there's an abnormal confinement, in other words, the delivery itself is abnormal, or there is something that happens afterwards. The woman has PPH, she has APH, and she's very ill. You should be able, as I understand the law, what it's saying is that you should be able to get additional maternity leave in addition to whatever leave you have left. This is my understanding of the law. So if you are told that you haven't exhausted your annual leave, and therefore I think that is against the law, because the law clearly says that you should be given additional maternity leave, and then you can ask for your annual leave. But yeah, I think that, it would be very interesting if some of these positions could be tested. Someone should take it up. Sally, I wish you had taken your issue where you were told that you had stayed at home too long, and maybe taken it to a court for a court to pronounce on it. Because I think there's a lot of unclarity surrounding our maternity leave and other laws. Yeah. Okay, I hope that's a useful answer.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Planjou. I hope, Nelly, your question has been answered rightly for you.
Yes, it has. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So there's one question here in the chat box by Mami Amankwa. She's asking, how can we practically enable breast milk expression in our health facilities for health workers? Dr. Planjou, that's for you.
Oh, is it for me? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Hey.
I think it's
Dr. Menu.
Yeah.
Are you a monkey? I'm one of the 5 little monkeys. Get down. Are you one of the 5 little monkeys? Eh?
No. Dr. Menu is coming to answer. The question is, how can we practically enable breast milk expression in our health facilities for health workers?
Hey, I'm one of the 5.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's what we've been talking about. If you work in a place that can actually give you a room, give you a place where a nursing mother can actually get the privacy to express, that would enable us to actually express and then take back home. That would actually bridge that gap. Sometimes you're at work. I've also actually worked at a place where there's a room for that. So you have nursing mothers who come in, they take their break, they have the privacy, then they express. So by the time they go home, they actually have a milk supply for the babies at home. I think that's the whole talk about trying to make the workplace very breastfeeding friendly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. May. So I just read on the chat box, somebody saying Guinness Ghana has 6 months paid maternity leave for mothers and 1 month paternity leave. So that's a plus to them. Okay, so I'm here with another question. If a woman has a miscarriage, this is by Hannah Sharon, SK. If a woman has a miscarriage, is she entitled to maternity leave? Is it of a shorter duration? Does it depend on when in the pregnancy she lost a baby? Dr. Plajou.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I think this question is asked a lot, and I think the law is silent on it. So I guess, yeah, the law is silent. I mean, even if your baby gets to term and it's a stillbirth, are you entitled to maternity leave? I think that it is something that the law is silent on. The idea of maternity leave is for you to have time with your baby. Therefore, if the baby did not, very painfully, the baby did not survive, I guess that it's a question that would need some discussion. But the law is essentially silent on it. I think that most employers would give you some time to recover, but probably not your full maternity leave.
All right, thank you. There's a follow-up question here. Is there maternity leave for a mother with early neonatal demise?
Yeah, I mean, again, law is silent on that. Okay. I mean, the similar answer to the stillbirth. If the baby is not there anymore, I'm sure that many employers would make an argument saying, look, you took maternity leave to take care and get used to the child and establish breast milk. If the child is not there anymore, can you justify being on maternity leave? But I think essentially the law is silent on it. So again, I can see an employer saying, okay, we'll give you a couple of weeks to recover, but you may need to come back to work. So again, it's an area of advocacy that we need to talk about.
All right, thank you so much. Dr. Menu, there's one here for you. Please, after CS, how long does it take before one can breastfeed?
Okay, thank you for the question. So you can actually start breastfeeding immediately. As long as your breast milk is flowing, and we actually encourage, for you to start expressing and attempting to express early so that your breast milk supply will come in as early as possible. There's no contraindication to breastfeeding when you have insecurities. Thank you. And then, in fact, one of the things that we try to tell our obstetricians to optimize pain relief and all that, so that once you're comfortable, then the breast milk will start flowing. So you can't breastfeed if only one you have the milk supply.
Great, thank you very much. Another one. Please enlighten us on the most preferable breastfeeding style. Is it in relation to sore nipples? This is in relation to sore nipples.
Well, I think there's really not a single one that would say that is preferable. Whatever makes you is comfortable for you and baby would be the most preferable for you. There's not a single one. I know there are different positions when it comes to breastfeeding. There's the cradle, there's the cross cradle, there's the football and all that. But whichever, if you have sore nipples, whichever one is most comfortable for you and baby would be what would be recommended.
All right, thank you. And there's an addition here. Somebody saying most facilities are now creating spaces for breast milk expression and breastfeeding for babies to mothers. Yes. Any more questions, please?
Okay, I think just a bit of clarification. I think that to the cesarean section question,
I think I may have sounded that you wait till the breast is flowing. You actually have to start putting the baby to breast, because like we all know, it's a demand and supply thing when it comes to breastfeeding. So long as once you've had your baby, you're comfortable, you start putting your baby to breast. So long as the baby suckles on your breast, that's going to let the milk, activate the milk let down reflex, and then it's going to help you to lactate better. So you don't have to wait till the milk is flowing. You just have to put your baby to breast, and that will facilitate milk production. Yes.
All right. So, yes, so as it is seen that our nurses usually allow nursing mothers to close at 12 p.m. when they resume after maternity leave, but a doctor who resumes immediately goes back to long hours of work. Is there something Ghana Medical Association or Pediatric Society of Ghana can take up especially for our junior colleagues? Dr. Planju.
I mean, yeah, without a doubt. I think that I don't know whether it's because historically nursing was such a female-dominated profession historically, and therefore, there was strong advocacy. But I think that when it comes to returning to work after breastfeeding, nurses are treated a lot better than doctors are. And certainly, I think that this is something that, even the issue of nights, for example, even night duties for nursing mothers. I've known many nursing mothers who have complained very bitterly about, being made to do lots and lots of nights. I think certainly it is an area of advocacy for the Ghana Medical Association and for the Pediatric Society, so that we get better conditions.
Thank you, Dr. Planju. So there's another question here for you, please. Is there an avenue to train as a lactation consultant in Ghana with or without medical background?
I don't know whether Dr. Segumoses is online. I'm sure she could make a comment on that, because I know that just last year, is that right? 2022 or 2021, there was a push to train lactation consultants in Ghana. I don't know what the requirements would be without a medical background. I don't know. I think that many of the people who were being considered were nurses, but I don't know whether Dr. Segumoses could throw more light on the issue of how far the lactation consultant program has gone.
Okay, thank you, Jukua. Yes, as you rightly stated, the Ghana Health Service is interested in training lactation consultants and certifying them to support mothers. And interestingly, the University of Health and Allied Sciences, UHAS, in the Volta region, also initiated a process of putting together such a program in their to be run by them. I'm not aware, in fact, I haven't heard that it started yet, so I think it's still on the drawing board. So for now in Ghana, there isn't such a program. In the past, we have run the breastfeeding counselors course. That's a WHO, I think it's a 40-hour course that has helped health workers to counsel. But to be a certified lactation consultant, I'm not aware that there's such a program apart from the international ones that exist. That's in India and I think also in the US. We're yet to start our own.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, there's a hand up, Philomena. Philomena, can you please unmute and ask your question?
Yes, please, I'm here. I'm very glad for
We can
for
hear
this
you.
meeting. I want to ask as are aware of this maternity leave. We've encountered some teachers that have issues with their GAs because they cannot take their children to the classrooms to breastfeed or for most mothers in our schools. So I want to know if the GAs, if Ghana Education Service, these hindrances. They also asked how to sustain exclusive breastfeeding for triplets. Personally, I have helped mothers with fenugreek and fennel Cs. I hope in the future we can research into it, but then it helps in the lactation and then it sustains their breast milk. So the person can also give it a try because there's individual difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I believe we are going to go further on that to get more answers or responses for this. Please, somebody is asking, is there a breast milk bank in Ghana, or are there breast milk banks in Ghana at the moment? And let me add, are we interested at all in having breast milk banks in Ghana?
Could I, yeah, to the best of my knowledge, there is no breast milk bank, no official formal breast milk bank. Is there interest? Yes, there is significant interest. I think that's something that lots and lots of people are talking about, and I've seen a couple of research works where people are looking at the acceptability of breast milk. So certainly there's the interest. I'm not aware that there's any that has been established yet. Perhaps if someone knows of one, they could comment, but I certainly don't.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. As those who know me know, I'm all for humor, and there is one here I can't let go. Someone is asking, Emmanuel, he says, maternity leave was intended for the care of the live baby. I'm going to change this thinking. I believe maternity leave is for both mother and baby. I could have used it to support my wife. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so Nelly Adade asks again, please, for residents who are nursing mothers, what is the ideal time to be put on night duty? Thank you. So I think this question goes to Dr. Menu. So Dr. Claudia Ajasai asked me to call Dr. Ususeche out for this one. Dr. Ususeche, please. Dr. Ajasai wants to know when the ideal time to be put on night for a resident who has just returned from maternity leave is.
You mean the male or female?
The female.
The female. It's actually both, Dr. Ususeche.
I mean, for a lactating mother, before 6 months or after 6 months, I'm not very sure of the question.
So what Nelly wants to find out is, after returning from the maternity leave, when is it ideal to be put?
Okay, I don't think there's any hard and fast rule as to when the ideal time is. Actually, it is very rigid out there when the router, you only slot in and then go along. But, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can hear you.
Yes, but in our part of the world, I think, personally, I mean, I'm the one involved in making the router, and you are returning and the baby is less than 6 months, I probably won't put you on the night shift because I'll presume baby is not eating solids yet. But if it is after 6 months and then I'm hard pressed, that I probably will consider putting you on night shift. But I think every institution has got its own recommendations, and it is important we fit into it. But that said, there's always it's always important to put a human face to things. I mean, we shouldn't be that rigid that this is the law and that is the way we're going to go accordingly. As some of the comments have come, different people may have different reactions to the same thing. I mean, we may have somebody after 4 months is all up and about, but some people may still have to grapple with some pressure. Their sugars may still be uncontrolled, especially those that develop either PIH or GDM. So we may have to look at individuals and then tailor things according to their needs. But personally, if I am the one involved with the router, I don't think I'll put anybody who's just returned from maternity leave less than 6 months, with a baby less than 6 months on night shift, because that's a very long stretch that a child is going to be deprived of mother's warmth, milk, and everything. Even though they may be able to store enough milk in the freezer or in the fridge, they still need to be around their parents or the mother in this instance.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I've been helpful, but there's no one fits all answer to this. It has to be individualized.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Am I the only one who can't hear anything? Or
Hello.
Sorry.
Can I be heard, Dr. Useke?
loud and clear now, please.
Thank you. Right. So Adeline Asante Kwabia is asking why we are doing 3 months and not 2 months or 4 months or 6 months. Why 3 months paid maternity leave? What is exactly special about the 3 months? Why not more or less? That's someone's question.
I guess that's directed to me, and the answer is simply that I don't know. I think that, as I showed you the table showing different countries when different countries with different lengths of maternity leave. Remarkable is the United States of America, which has 0. I guess that for 12 weeks seems to be the shortest that any country gives. And I guess for the other countries, people fought for it. We know that if we are saying 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding, it makes sense for maternity leave to go to 6 months. Of course, then you have issues of female employment. Do people want to employ women? So I think that 3 months is the minimum. I don't think any country, apart from the United States, has less than 3 months. And anything beyond that, we will have to fight for it. So we'll have to do a lot of advocacy and going to Parliament and trying to get the law changed. So I don't know what the basis was for 3 months. Yes, I agree with you, Adeline. We should advocate to make the law align with our advocacy for exclusive breastfeeding. But as I said, we need to be cautious about the issue of will people want to employ, the effect on female employment. So as we do advocacy, we also need to advocate with the employers for them to recognize the benefit of allowing a mother to stay at home for 6 months. And we also need to make sure that as mothers are staying at home for 6 months, they're not just still doing the formula feeding because they've not been able to breastfeed. So I think it's quite a big and quite a complex issue, but I agree with you absolutely. 6 months maternity leave would be ideal.
Please, we can't hear you.
Yeah. Where are our MCs? It's very silent.
MCs are here.
Okay.
You are muted briefly.
Yes. So we have a few acknowledgements, and the first on the list is Dr. John Adebi Apia, the immediate past president of the Pediatric Society of Ghana. Dr. Adebi, if you are on the call, kindly say hi. Hello, Dr. Adebi. So while we wait for him to say a big hi, we would also like to acknowledge a wonderful person, Prof. Bamenla Goka, a past president of the Pediatric Society of Ghana. I mean, if it were human, they would say grandma. So yes, a past president of the Pediatric Society of Ghana, Prof. Bamenla Goka. As we started, Prof was giving me some coaching in the background. Thank you very much, Prof. Prof, hi.
Hi.
Next up, we have Dr. Nana Okai Brako, Regional Newborn Coordinator. So Dr. Nana Okai Brako. Hello. Yes, hello, we can see you. All right. So next up, we have Dr. Emmanuel Pabi, and all National Pediatric Society of Ghana executives. The last but not least, Dr. Charlene Kilba.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, hi, Dr. Pabi. And yes, last but not least, Dr. Charlene Kilba. Hi to you too. All right, so we continue with our question Q&A session, and we have a question. Salma, kindly do us the honors.
Juliana is asking, can you lie down and breastfeed? Dr. Minu, can you lie down and breastfeed?
So, Juliana, you can't lie down. There's the sideline position when you are breastfeeding. You just have to make sure that you support your baby very well. Your baby, make sure that your breast is not obstructing the nostrils of your baby. You have to be conscious. You actually have to look at it and see how the position is before you try it. But you can't. There's a sideline position where you can breastfeed your baby from. Just make sure.
Hello. Please, the audience cannot hear you. Please get closer.
Sorry about that. So I'm saying that you can actually lie down and breastfeed. You just have to make sure that you're comfortable. You support your baby's back, your baby's neck and head, and make sure that your breast is not obstructing the nostrils of your baby. And your baby's comfortable enough. You don't have the breast milk actually coming out of the nostrils as well. So it's not a very common position, but you can do it. You can actually do that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manu. I see a question here too again. The person is asking, does cesarean section by maternal request benefits abnormal confinement? Dr. Flanjou.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I keep going back to what the law says. The law doesn't give any detail as to what is an abnormal confinement. But I know that many institutions, once you have a cesarean section, whether it is by maternal request or whatever, they treat it as an abnormal confinement and automatically give you an additional 2 weeks. Whether that is fair or correct, I guess is up for debate, but that is what happens in many facilities.
Thank you so much. And Raymond Lawe is asking, is there any practical help on how to sustain exclusive breastfeeding breastfeeding for 6 months for triplets. And I'll ask for twins as well. Dr. Menu,
I think I'll say a few words, and maybe Dr. Andrew can add it. I think the thing to know about breastfeeding is that the more you breastfeed, the more the milk supply you're going to get. So one practical way to actually go about this is, I know that 3 babies is quite a lot, but once you feed the milk, the milk letdown reflex is going to let you produce more milk. So in between feeds, you can actually express and save. I think that is one of the most natural ways that can help you to sustain breastfeeding. There are all sorts of products on the market that we don't know how they work and we can't vouch for them. But just know that it's demand and supply. The more you demand, the more your body will supply, and save as much as you can for the lean season. And then keep it very well. You can store in the fridge. There are actually directions at what temperature you can store the breast milk at. In fact, there are differences with how long you can save it if it's in the door of the fridge, if it's in the freezer compartment. You have to review all these before you make a decision. But really, it's demand and supply, and then you save and store as much as you can.
Dr. Andrew, please, any addition?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree absolutely with Sally, but you do need to keep, it's quite interesting, even in this meeting, if you look at the comments, we've not been able to address all the questions, but we see one person saying, I have so much breast milk, I want to donate it, but I don't know how to donate it. We have another person saying, after I expressed 100 ml, I can't get any more. So definitely breast milk is about demand and supply. The more frequently and the more efficiently and effectively you breastfeed, the more milk you are going to get. When it comes to twins and triplets, there are many, examples certainly of twins who have done exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. I think that because women have a variable amount and sort of ability to, some women produce a lot more milk than others. If you are doing exclusive breastfeeding with twins and triplets, you need to keep an eye on their weight, breastfeed as much as possible, as frequently as possible, as effectively as possible. Make sure they're latching well, make sure you are expressing. If within all that, the children are not doing well, you may find that you may need to supplement earlier than 6 months. So absolutely, yes, twins can do exclusive breastfeeding. A couple of examples of triplets, but keep an eye on their weights and make sure that they are thriving.
If I may add a bit, this is where support for the mother with other chores at home and other things, and even psychological support is really, really important, because more or less she's feeding almost like around the clock. So she needs optimal support from the father and other people around her. And also, if she's helped to be able to breastfeed 2 at a time and not one after the other, then it saves her some time. So the football hold for breastfeeding, for example, can be used so that she can feed 2 at a time, especially when they are triplets. Otherwise, she's like, as soon as she finishes with one, the other is crying, and if she doesn't have the support, then it becomes almost impossible to proceed. Over.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been a number of questions on this issue of storage of breast milk. How long can you keep it in the fridge and the freezer and all that? I think I've seen about 3 and we haven't addressed them. So do you mind if I make a comment here?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because this is something that, as I said, I'm currently almost an exclusive breastfeeding mother myself, because I'm supporting my daughter. And it was one of the things that really was a problem. And I realized that sometimes our guidance is not too efficient. When we started, I know that you always say if it's outside the fridge at room temperature, you can keep it for up to 6 hours. And then you say in the fridge, you say you can keep it up to 24 hours. But again, be careful, because one of the things I realized was that in the initial fridge in which we were keeping our express breast milk, there was so much door opening. that sometimes the milk did not last as long as 24 hours because of where it was placed. So sometimes it's more useful to speak of temperatures. If your breast milk is at room temperature, usually they quote 25 degrees. Now, we do not have 25 degrees room temperature in Ghana, typically. So, some people say room temperature up to 8 hours. I think that if you're keeping it in room temperature, be mindful how hot the place is, because in a fridge, it should be around 5-6 degrees. So if your fridge is an old fridge and there's always doom saw, the lights are always going off and the temperature is always rising up to 20 degrees and all that, it's not a good place. So you need to be careful. Yes, you can keep it in the fridge for up to 24 hours, but that fridge should maintain a temperature of around 5-6 degrees. And similar for the freezer. If it's around 18 degrees, you can store it. But if it's up down as cold as minus 18 degrees, which is what most good chest freezers will have, and some good fridge freezers will also have, you can store it up to 6 months. So those are the recommendations: 6 hours outside the fridge, 24 hours in the fridge, 6 months in a freezer. But we need to make sure that the devices work, that they are kept cool, that the doors are not always being open, that people are not always putting their meat in it, and the lights are not always going off. But if you have, if all those things are looked at, then this is how, breast milk at minus 18 degrees can stay for up to 6 months. Some literature even says 12 months, but obviously the longer you leave it, the more nutrients and things you lose. I hope that's helpful.
Very, very helpful. We are grateful. Somebody's asking, what can I use to help, or anything to help boost my breast milk supply? Dr. Menu.
All right, so as Dr. Menu walks up here, I need to acknowledge the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. This was, a few pictures have been uploaded on the page by Dr. Kilba. And in the picture, we have Dr. Bracon and the staff of the babies unit and their mothers in attendance. So kudos to you. Let's give them a round of applause. They've done very well. I hope this will be emulated by every other doctor around. So thank you very, very much. Dr. Menu has a few comments, and then I think I see Dr. Braco's hand up. So Dr. Menu, Dr. Braco gives his comment, and maybe we can wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say, if you want to boost your breast milk supply, what we can recommend to get enough rest, hydrate, eat good food. There are so many products, like I said earlier, on the market. I don't have experience with them. I haven't done any research to recommend any of them. But what I would say is that make sure you get enough rest. Like our grandmothers would say, sleep when your baby sleeps and all those things. Just get enough rest. Hydrate very well. It's a balanced diet. And lactate or express, and if you can, in between, or push your baby to breast as often as you can to boost the supply. I think that is what I would say to that question. Thank you. Any hindrances to exclusive breastfeeding? That's somebody's question. So I think the hindrances will be on a more personal level, because we've said that, okay, we've noticed lots of studies have actually shown that if the duration of your maternity leave can be a hindrance. I think a lot of us health workers, when we try at most, we're able to do about 5 months, because then you leave all your annual leave and add it to your maternity leave. So the duration of your maternity leave is one of the hindrances that have been seen. The other thing is how breastfeeding friendly your workplace is. So if you're at a place where you can actually get the opportunity to express, get the privacy to express in between, your work schedule, and then you're able to go back home with some milk for your baby. I think those are some of the things that can help, can actually help a mom to stay on the track of exclusively breastfeeding their kids. Other people have personal issues like
like I said earlier, some people think that their breast will sag. Some people think that it's not really fashionable. Some people would say that maybe because of the kind of work that I do, some people have all sorts of issues. I think they are more personal than true challenges. Some of the true challenges are really the two main things, which is the how breastfeeding friendly your workplace, especially if you're in the formal sector, and then if you the kind of how much time you have with your baby. I think those are the true hindrances that seems to cut across board if you review literature. Those are the true hindrances, but there may be other personal issues that people would have that may actually hinder them from exclusively breastfeeding their babies.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salimino. Dr. Bracco, please, you can go on with your comments.
Hello.
Dr. Bracco, please. Hello.
Yes, I have one of the patients who wants to ask a question, so I'll leave it to that.
Oh, hi. That's nice.
Hello.
Yes, that's the first time.
Hello.
Whilst, please, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Loud and
Yes, we can hear you.
The first time, whilst breastfeeding, what if the baby gets choked with the breast milk? What are you supposed to do?
Yes, please. Hold on for your response.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
So if your baby, I think that's why we talked about being careful when you're feeding, making sure you're positioning your baby very well. If you position your baby very well, then the chances of that happening is slim. But you have to, I think there are ways of trying to evacuate the breast milk, usually with pat the back. There's all these maneuvers that maybe you may actually have to review. It'll be difficult to actually say it here, but I think at least patting the back and then making sure you turn your baby sideways so that the breast milk can actually come out of the mouth. Those are some of the things you can do, but if you, maybe you can add that. But I think bottom line is being very careful because the baby can actually choke on the feed and then that can lead to death. So just make sure your positioning is good. If you need assistance, health workers are always available to help you, and then make sure baby is comfortable, the food is going down. But in the event of a near choking, you can turn your baby to the side, try to pat the back in between the shoulder blades, and then you can call for help and then for assistance. Hopefully we don't get there, but I don't know whether Dr. Blanchot has anything to add to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, sometimes when you're breastfeeding, you have something that is called a letdown reflex. I don't know whether you've started experiencing it. I don't know how old your baby is, but you realize that sometimes when you are breastfeeding, you feel like something is squeezing inside your breast. And you find that when that thing happens, the milk comes, sort of squirts out. And you sometimes find that when it comes, the babies find it difficult to handle, and then they begin to cough, as if they are choking, they cough. And sometimes the baby will even let go of the breast. So just hold the baby up. And as Dr. Melu said, hold the baby up, pat the baby's back, let the baby recover fully. Usually they are fine. There are some babies who have special problems, which I don't think we want to go into. For example, if you have a very premature baby, they can have special difficulties with choking during feeding. But if it's about a healthy big baby, usually they can handle it. If you stop the feed, hold the baby up, pat the back until the baby has stopped coughing and everything, then you can resume the breastfeed. Yeah, but it's very normal. You find that when you're breastfeeding, you feel something squeezing in your breast. Sometimes even your womb also begins to squeeze, and it can be a little bit painful. And it's all very, very, very normal.
Thank you.
I'm done. Yeah, over.
Yes, please. Dr. Bracco, is that all from the Greater Accra Regional Hospital? All right. In the absence of further questions and comments, we would humbly call our chairperson to give us the closing remarks and official lunch of the week.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. It's been an exciting afternoon. And before I give my closing remarks, I just want to say a few things about increasing your milk supply, one point in particular, and that's the importance of night feeds, feeding at night, because hormones that support breastfeeding production and breastfeeding letdown operate optimally in the night. These days, there is a habit of expressing breast milk so that someone else can feed to the baby while the mother rests. And you find out that mother is allowed to sleep at night and someone else is feeding the expressed breast milk. That can be counterproductive because then you lose the benefit of the circadian rhythm, the hormones working for the mother at night to increase breast milk production. So please, let's take note of that. Mother should be encouraged to breastfeed at night. She can take a rest during the day. Okay, so to my remarks, we've learned so much. I won't attempt to summarize, but just to mention a few of the key points that have come out, and the fact that breastfeeding and promotion will actually contribute to attainment of the SDGs. So it's a very holistic package that we'll be getting for society as a whole. We've learned about the role of health workers and what we can all do to support this. We've learned that investing in policies and programs that support breastfeeding will not just save lives of mother and baby, but will also give us a high return on investment. We also went through the role of fathers in breastfeeding, and we've been given some practical tips about how fathers can support and make sure that mothers are breastfeeding optimally even when they are working. And that reminded me of a real life story that we encountered once when we visited one of our big banks in Ghana, where they have a breast milk, a creche to support breastfeeding mothers. We encountered a father who worked in that establishment. His wife was working elsewhere where they didn't have a baby-friendly facility in their workplace. So what they were doing was that the mother would express the breast milk, and then the father brings the baby to work with the expressed breast milk, and the baby, continues to breastfeed whilst they are both working. So when we are thinking about workplace-friendly facilities, we shouldn't limit them to mothers. These facilities can also be made use of by fathers and their babies. We've also gone on to look at the law and breastfeeding. And I think that the take-home message there is that all of us, health workers and general public, we need to be informed about the labor law that we have, about the breastfeeding promotion regulations, so that we can use the provisions to our advantage and to the advantage of mothers. And also so that we will not be in violation to the laws that are supposed to control the distribution and sale of breast milk substitutes. Investing in maternity leave is a valuable economic tool. And so that is the way to go for all of us to benefit optimally. As a society, pediatric society, and also as the general public, we have identified a lot of areas where advocacy is needed. And I believe that going from today, we would use the whole month and actually the whole year to be good advocates to make sure that breastfeeding works for the breastfeeding, the working mother, and for working parents. It's been a fruitful afternoon. We have lots of nuggets to go away with. And on that note, I am very happy and deem it an honor to declare this year's Breastfeeding Week celebration by the Pediatric Society of Ghana duly launched. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Isabella Sego-Moses. So all too soon, I need to point out that it's saddening that we have come to the end of today's meeting. I had so much fun, and there was a lot I picked up from this, believe me, and I'm sure it's going to help me going forward. Please, I'm not a nursing father yet. Yes, so at this juncture, my sister Selma will give us the closing prayer. Selma.
Right. Yes, it's been very interesting and quite awakening to hear some comments, learn a few new things, and hear that the children at the OPDs gossip about their relationship with their dads and moms and the breast milk and all that. That was very interesting. Yes, please, shall we close our eyes and pray? Thank you, Father, for a wonderful time like this. Thank you for the wisdom acquired, the information learned, and help us to apply whatever we have learned, especially as health workers who are going to be teaching and counseling, and even parents who are learning and also going to help support others with the information. We are grateful for the close of the session. We pray in Jesus Christ's mighty name throughout the year, even help us let the numbers of exclusively breastfed babies go up as to get protection and health from whatever the breastfeeding activities are going to be around them. We pray, oh Lord, that you help us even in our work and in the parenting of such babies. We give you glory in Jesus Christ's mighty name. Next year, we'll have the cause to thank you again for a successful year in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
On this note, I say the meeting has ended. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.